The person who shattered your heart is sleeping just fine, while you're the one lying awake at night, torn apart on the inside. Throw out that recycled, just forgive and move on advice. Healing is not soft. It is surgery without anesthesia. And if you want to survive it, stay with me until the end. Have you ever found yourself awake at 3 in the morning, feeling like something inside your chest is being crushed by grief, while the person who hurt you is sleeping peacefully? There is a brutal psychological injustice that almost nobody wants to say out loud. The one who caused the damage is often the one sleeping best. They move on calmly, they eat well, they dress well, they post pictures like nothing ever happened. And you, the one who got wounded, are the one sinking to the bottom of a dark, emotional swamp. You turn on yourself. You chew on the pain like acid, letting it slowly burn through you from the inside. You sit there, wondering what you did wrong to deserve this kind of collapse. That absurdity is enough to make anyone feel like they can't breathe. And you have every right to be angry. Welcomes you. Before we expose this truth and talk about what it actually takes to survive it, if any part of this already feels painfully familiar, subscribe to the channel right now. Your support is what keeps this channel going and allows us to keep making sharper, deeper, more honest videos about the hidden mechanics of the human mind. Now stop scrolling aimlessly for a second and throw away the hollow self-help lines. Time heals everything. Just stay strong. Forgive so your soul can be at peace. A lot of the time, those phrases do not help you survive. They make you shut down even deeper. That is toxic positivity. Let's tell the truth. Time does not heal anything by itself. If you get a splinter stuck in your skin and leave it there, it does not magically disappear after a few years. It gets inflamed, it gets infected, and it quietly damages everything around it. Psychological pain works the same way. Forcing yourself to stay strong, smile, and act like nothing happened is not healing. It is performance. It is delay. It is avoidance dressed up as strength. Today, we are going to tear that illusion apart. Healing has never been some miracle that falls into your lap. It is not one sad afternoon with music in the background. It is not a vacation you take to run from reality. It is not a few beautiful words strong enough to pull you out of the hell inside your own mind. Hear this clearly. Healing is psychological surgery without anesthesia. It is cold. It is brutal. It demands discipline. And it demands a level of selfishness big enough to protect whatever part of you is still alive. Yes, selfishness. Because when you are bleeding mentally and emotionally, you cannot keep living to please everyone else. You have to put yourself back on the priority list. You have to pull your power back from people who never deserved access to it. You have to gather every ounce of energy you still have and use it to save yourself. And if you are ready to step onto that cold table, if you are ready to face what is real and take your life back, then the first cut starts here. That first cut goes deep enough to explain why, instead of screaming, you often feel empty, numb, and strangely paralyzed. When something devastating hits you, betrayal from the person you trusted most, humiliation from someone in your own family, rejection so cold, it leaves you stunned. Your brain immediately switches into a primitive survival response. It freezes the pain, just like in a horrifying accident. There are moments at first when you barely feel anything. Your brain floods your system with chemicals meant to help you survive the initial shock. It shuts down parts of your emotional system so you do not collapse on the spot. But this is where the real tragedy begins. A lot of people never fully come out of that frozen state. They still wake up. They still go to work. They still smile. They still play the role of someone who is completely fine. They take that ball of rage and grief, stuff it into the darkest corner of their mind, and slap a beautiful label on it. I'm over it. No, you're not. Pain does not disappear just because you stop looking at it. The energy of pain never really vanishes. It just changes form. When you avoid the root of the wound goes underground. It turns toxic. And eventually, it shows up through distorted versions of you. You snap at people who did not deserve it. You distrust genuine kindness. You damage your own body with alcohol, cigarettes, sleepless nights, or shallow relationships just to numb the emptiness. You become harder, sharper, more reactive, not because you are bad, but because deep down, Something in you is still slowly dying from pain you never processed. Here is the ruthless truth. As long as you refuse to rip off that fake bandage and look directly at what is hurting, you will remain the victim of yourself before you are the victim of anyone else. If you want to escape the ghost-like numbness that has been haunting you, then you have no choice but to enter the second phase of the surgery. Tear open the protective layer. Look directly at the buried swamp of pain. When the anesthesia called denial starts to wear off, the truth will hit you hard. You will begin to actually feel the pain, clearly, sharply, coldly, down to the cellular level. That looks like long nights curled up alone. It looks like a chest so tight you feel like you can't breathe. It looks like crying until you feel emptied out, only to realize the weight is still there. Do not be afraid of that moment, and more importantly, do not run from it. The world teaches us that falling apart is weakness, that anger is ugly, that adults are supposed to stay composed, keep it classy, hold it together, and act civilized no matter what. But how are you supposed to stay polished on the outside when everything in you is cracking on the inside? Letting yourself break is not failure. It is a basic human right when you have been hurt. You have the right to be furious. You have the right to feel the injustice of it. You have the right to admit that you were pushed too far. At this stage, anger is not something that needs to be shut down immediately. It is evidence that you still know you matter. It means some part of you still refuses to accept being treated like that. Let that anger burn through the surrender that has been crushing you for far too long. Let your tears wash away the dust of the lies you swallowed just to keep functioning. Do not rush to wear the costume of a forgiving person too early. If you've just realized you've been enduring this for way too long too, comment 1. Because if you force yourself to forgive while the wound is still open, that is not healing. That is self-betrayal in a more polite form. Real healing demands that you go all the way down. You have to touch the sharpest fragments of your shattered self-respect. You have to stare directly at the ugly shape of the monster called trauma instead of pretending it is not there. Only when you are willing to see it can you start to take its power away. At this point, pain is no longer proof that you are dying. It is proof that your feelings are coming back online. Your emotional wiring is reconnecting. And now you are ready for the next stage of the purge. But feeling the pain is not enough. If all you do is scream and cry while leaving the source of infection exactly where it is, then all that suffering goes to waste. So the third cut has to happen. You cut away what is already dead. You remove the source of contamination. You stop giving poison a direct path back into your life. This is where the selfishness I mentioned earlier reveals its real meaning. You cannot heal while still living in the same emotional environment that keeps destroying you. You cannot rebuild your inner world while still giving manipulators, betrayers, and draining relationships easy access to it. At some point, you have to clean up your environment. No compromise, no lingering, no more giving privileges to people who have repeatedly shown you they do not deserve them. A lot of people get stuck here because of guilt, especially when the person who caused the damage is family, a partner, or someone who has been part of your life for years. And that is exactly why this becomes a trap. Toxic people are experts at using your empathy against you. They cry. They promise change. They drag out old memories as evidence. They make you feel like walking away makes you the cruel one. Meanwhile, your brain, already addicted to the cycle of pain and relief, abuse and affection, rejection and pulling you back in, starts whispering that maybe you should return. That is the trap. Wake up. Blood ties, history, memories, titles and labels are not permission slips for cruelty. At this point, boundaries are no longer some soft personal preference. They are survival. Delete the number, block the contact, close the door they keep using to walk back in. Clear out the reminders that keep dragging you back into the same cycle. Yes, it hurts. It may feel like you are cutting off a piece of your own body, but losing part of yourself to save the whole is better than keeping everything and letting it all rot from the inside. You have to become the coldest guard your mind has ever had. Anyone who repeatedly drains your energy, lowers your value, or pulls you back into old psychological wounds has to be removed from your orbit. Not because you are heartless, because you want to live. And that changes everything. Because for the first time, healing stops being a passive wish and becomes an act of power. You are no longer begging life to get easier. You are making decisions that stop the damage. You are not waiting for them to wake up, change, or suddenly become decent. You are learning the truth most people avoid for years. Some people do not need more access to you. They need less. Some people do not deserve another explanation. They need distance. Some people are not confused about your pain. They are comfortable causing it, and the longer you keep them close, the more expensive your healing becomes. That is why walking away is not weakness. It is discipline. Holding your ground is discipline. Refusing to respond is discipline. Not going back just because you feel lonely is discipline. Not reopening a door just because they knocked at the right emotional moment is discipline. This part is brutal because it forces you to stop romanticizing what is destroying you. It forces you to accept that love without safety is not love. Loyalty without respect is bondage. And history without change is just repeated damage. You do not heal by staying available to what broke you. You heal by becoming unavailable to it. Once the poison has finally been removed from your life, the surgery is still not over. Now comes the quietest part, the loneliest part, and maybe the most exhausting part of all. You start stitching your soul back together by hand. There is a thin line between being the victim of a terrible event and living the rest of your life trapped in a victim identity. You were hurt. You were betrayed. You were disrespected. You were broken by something real. That was not your fault. You did not create the cruelty. So why should you have to carry the consequences of it? But here is one of the hardest truths of adult life. What happened to you may not be your fault, but healing it is still your responsibility. No one can enter your mind and untie those knots for you. No late apology is powerful enough to restore what collapsed inside you. No miracle arrives just because you have suffered long enough. At some point, you have to stand up and clean the wreckage someone else left behind. That is the part that hurts in a completely different way. Because now you are no longer fighting them. You are fighting your own stagnation. This phase of healing requires a deep form of self-compassion, but not the weak kind, not the indulgent kind, not the kind that becomes an excuse to stay stuck forever. This is disciplined compassion. It is getting out of bed when everything inside you feels empty. It is feeding yourself properly when your mouth cannot even taste the food. It is taking care of your body, because your body is the vehicle carrying you through the storm. It is going to sleep earlier. Drinking water. Moving your body. Keeping small promises to yourself even when you feel nothing. It is sitting down with the panicked child inside you. It is looking directly at your shame, your deprivation, your fear of abandonment, and the weakest parts of yourself, without humiliating yourself for still carrying them. One day at a time, one stitch at a time, the wound will begin to close. And there will be days when the old pain comes rushing back. Days when your heart aches again. Days when one song, one smell, one memory, one random message pulls you right back to the place you thought you had left behind. Days when it feels like you have made no progress at all. But that does not mean you are back at the beginning. That is what healing skin does. It aches. It tightens. It reminds you it is still rebuilding. If today is the day you decide you are not going to live the old way anymore, comment 1. Then keep wiping the blood off the floor. Keep applying the medicine. Keep showing up for your life. Not so you can become the naive person you used to be, but so you can build someone new. Someone more grounded, more awake, more emotionally intelligent, and much harder to knock down. Because real healing is not about becoming soft in a way that makes you easy to harm again. It is about becoming whole in a way that makes you harder to manipulate. That means learning how to trust yourself again. Trust your discomfort when something feels off. Trust your body when it tightens around certain people. Trust your exhaustion when a relationship keeps draining you. Trust your anger when a line has been crossed. Trust your sadness when something matters. Trust your intuition when your mind tries to talk you out of what your soul already knows. For a long time, pain may have taught you to doubt yourself. Now your job is to reverse that damage. That is part of the stitching too. You rebuild yourself every time you stop gaslighting your own feelings. You rebuild yourself every time you choose peace over chaos, truth over fantasy, and self-respect over emotional crumbs. And slowly, almost invisibly, your life begins to change shape. Eventually, the final stitch gets tied, and that is when you reach the last cut. The harshest and brightest realization of all. You are never going to be the person you were before, and that is not the tragedy. That is the gift. People often mourn the version of themselves that existed before the betrayal, before the humiliation, before the loss, the trusting version, the open-hearted version. the innocent version. The version that still believed everyone meant well. But let's be honest, that innocence came with cracks. It was your lack of boundaries, your misplaced trust, your habit of ignoring warning signs, your constant urge to keep the peace, your need to be understanding no matter the cost. All of that created openings that let the wrong people walk in and damage you. So no, the scar is not something to be ashamed of. It is a survival medal. It reminds you what unchecked access can cost. It teaches you how to see through polished smiles and pretty words. It turns your heart from a door that is always open into a fortress with standards. And that is where the injustice that drove you insane at the beginning of this story starts losing its grip. The fact that they kept living happily while you were the one losing sleep, it stops mattering the way it used to. Not because you forgot, but because you no longer hand them that kind of power. They can continue living however they live, but you are no longer living under their shadow. You are no longer spending your energy hoping they will understand, regret it, apologize, or finally get punished. You pull their presence out of your mind. You revoke their emotional citizenship in your inner world. You reduce them to what they really are now. A chapter, not a ruler. A wound, not an identity. A lesson, not a life sentence. And that is the real victory. Healing is not erasing painful memories. Healing is standing above those memories as the person who survived them. Sharper, calmer, freer, and far stronger than before. Channel name. Thank you for staying through this entire psychological surgery. And if this journey touched something deep inside you, stay with the ending. Because the most important part is not how badly you were hurt. It is how differently you choose to live from this day forward. Healing was never meant to be a soft love song. It is major surgery without anesthesia, where you are both the one on the table and the one forced to hold the knife. You begin by tearing away denial and facing what is real. Then you move through the most painful stage, where tears, anger, and collapse are no longer signs of weakness, but proof that the living part of you has not died. Then comes the harder stage. You cut away what is destroying you, not out of hatred, out of survival. After that comes the longest and quietest road of all. You take responsibility for the wreckage inside you. You stitch it back together. You care for yourself. You drag yourself forward through days when it feels like you have nothing left. And in the end, what remains is not the old version of you, restored exactly as before. It is someone new, more aware, more boundaried, less easy to manipulate, much harder to break. Your scar is no longer proof that something ruined you. It becomes proof that you walked through hell and still came out on your own feet. And here is the core lesson. Other people's cruelty is not your fault. But getting up, cleaning up the wreckage, and healing what they broke is a responsibility nobody can carry for you. No apology will save you if you do not start saving yourself. That is why real healing is never about pretty words. It is about action. Look at the relationships that are draining your life force. Stop waiting for karma, revenge, closure, or a perfect apology. Start rebuilding your body, your routines, your mind, and your discipline even before you feel fully better. That is how someone who once collapsed begins to rebuild from the ground up. And now I want to ask you something real. In this entire journey, which step feels the most painful to you? Facing the truth? Cutting off toxic people? Or stitching your own wound back together? If you are ready to step into a new life, comment one before you leave. And if this video gave you a perspective real enough, deep enough, and strong enough to make you look at yourself differently, then hit subscribe. Your support is what keeps this channel alive and allows us to keep creating content that goes deeper, hits harder, and tells the truth most people are too afraid to say out loud. Thank you so much. I hope you build a life that is strong, clear, and free.